Oh my gosh, there's a hummingbird on the feeder. They're gonna go home soon. Stop being weird. My hair. Why is it so weird today? Oh, my sweetheart. Okay. Hi, welcome to FiberLoveDiary. I'm Trisha if we haven't met, and if we have met, welcome back. How are you? This is the channel where I document my fiber journey. So sometimes it's knitting, spinning, weaving, felting, dyeing, prepping, processing fleece from raw, sometimes blending, all those things. Probably more things as well. I don't know. Today we're going to talk a little bit about spinning a lace weight or a finer yarn. I did make a list of everything that I wanted to make sure I touched on, and I'm going to talk about some technical stuff, which is really not me usually. I don't like to talk about the technical stuff. I like to talk about the artsy stuff. If you want to spin a thinner or a lace weight yarn, maybe you're new. A lot of times when people just first start spinning, they say to themselves they wish they could spin finer and finer yarns. It happens all the time to new spinners. First of all, just to let you know, I chose my match list, my shocked match list for this video or for these purposes. You can do this on any wheel. There are just some things that you have to keep in mind, and we're going to talk about them as we go. Literally any wheel you can do it. If you think about it, like in the 1800s or even going back further, most of the time someone would only have one wheel and they would spin all different kinds of yarn on their wheel. It isn't like one is great for this and other ones are no good for it. You can do it, but you just have to know like how to adjust things, how to get around things maybe. We're going to talk about all of it as we talk about each topic. Just so you know, that's the wheel we're going to use. The first thing I wanted to talk about is fiber. If you're trying to learn how to spin a finer yarn, so I think a fiber with a longer staple is helpful while you're learning to spin a finer yarn. That's because if you're spinning with a longer staple fiber, it will be less likely to pull apart because it just takes a little bit less twist to hold it together. If you have very short staple fiber, you have to put a lot of twist in it to make sure it will hold together. And it does make sense if you really think about the fact that the twist is what's holding it. And so if you have all these little tiny short fibers, you've got to twist them a lot harder and a lot tighter in order to make sure that they don't just pull each other apart. If you have longer ones, right, it just makes sense that you can do it with a little less twist. And normally when people are learning this, that twist is a big part of the struggle. Just try starting with a fiber that's a little bit longer. It does not have to be a fine fiber. You do not have to do this with like Cormo, Merino, Rambouillet. You can do this with really pretty much any kind of fiber. You can spin a fine yarn. So this is actually gray Cheviot. It came from Into the World and the colorway is called Crows in a Creel. I don't know what that means. Is that like a book reference? I don't know. I'm not sure. And I picked this because it's a good, I would say medium length fiber. It's definitely not going to be a shorty. So let's see how long it actually is. I'm just grabbing the little tuft at the end. So what pulls out will generally be one staple length of the fiber. I would say this is a good, gosh, 4 to 5 inch staple. I did not grab my ruler, but this is a great one to start with if you want to spin a finer yarn. It's perfect. But anything with like, I would say if it were me, I would go for something with a 4-inch staple or longer for practicing of this. And then once you feel like you've really got it down, you can just kind of make this, move the staple length shorter and shorter as you feel comfortable. But don't feel like it has to be merino or it has to be, you know, these super fine fibers. It doesn't have to be at all. So that's number one. Number two is speed and twist. That's what I have my visual aid for, which I made for you. That's why you're gonna see it is very simple. If you are spinning a very thick yarn and you are spinning, let's say 2 inches, so that's maybe this length right up here, okay? you can see that this thick yarn only needs, it's really got less than 2 twists per inch. Obviously, this isn't to scale, but it will make sense when you compare it to the other smaller yarn. So when you have this smaller yarn, to have the same angle of twist in 2 inches, it's like 20. I mean, it is completely different, right? And scale-wise, these aren't too far off because, I mean, if you look at them, this is maybe 20% of the thickness of this, and that is something that like we could really do. That means when you are doing a super fine single, you're gonna need way more twist. There's some ways that you can kind of help yourself with that, and then there's some ways you can get around it if your wheel has limitations. I'm gonna use my Shocked Matchless, and I'm actually gonna change the whirl. If you don't have multiple whirls, I mean, usually you at least have a couple options for speed. Whatever kind of wheel you have, unless you draft extremely slowly, you'll probably want to set your wheel up to be as fast as it can be. So your highest ratio, I actually do have a higher ratio whirl for this, but this one will do just fine. This is my smallest, like standard size one. The other one is a lace weight whirl, because I'm kind of assuming that you guys may or may not have one, so I'm gonna do it without. This is still quite a small whirl. The ratio will be high. The important thing, if you are spinning it with a double drive, you gotta remember that your groove on your bobbin always needs to be smaller than your whirl or it won't work. We picked the bobbin with the smallest groove. If you have a single drive wheel, you can just hook it up to be the fastest possible ratio that you've got. So the highest possible ratio that you've got. If you cannot get your wheel spinning super fast because you don't have whirls that size, all you're gonna wanna do is just draft more slowly. You might even have to like pause to let the twist build up a little bit because it'll be harder to get enough twist. And then also another option in that area is to treadle faster. I don't love that option. When possible, it's always gonna be better to just work with your natural treadling rhythm, and we all have one when we're spinning. So if you can, set your wheel up to just spin faster. If you can't, you're gonna draft more slowly. This brings me to uptake. Let's get going. I'm gonna point you towards my wheel so that you can see what I mean a little bit better. This is my Kromsky. I am just about to start spinning something else on there, so that's not what we're looking at. Just don't look at the Kromsky. A lot of people say it's easier. Let me lower my tension a little. On a double drive wheel, because it is very easy to get a very light draw in tension with a double drive wheel. You can do a lot with your tension if you have, let me pull out a piece of Kemp, if you have a Scotch or Irish tension wheel, if you have a wheel that has a different tension type, and that's why I wanted to spin a little bit on here. So I have the uptake on my tension very loose. This is a double drive wheel. You can hear it makes a little bit of noise, but that's okay. And I am pulling this out, so it's literally like, I don't know, 5 to 8 hairs at a time. And I really suggest that you just go ahead and draft very slowly to start. But see how few. But again, I've got my wheel going very fast, so I'm putting a lot of twist in this yarn. If you have a wheel for any reason that is hard to set it up so that the tension, the uptake is very loose, you can cross lace your wheel. So what that means is that your wheel comes up and goes to a hook right here. This first one, I'm thinking you can probably see it. And then what you will do is unwind a bit on your bobbin, pull it up, Hang on, I want to unwind a little bit more. And then you go across to another hook, so it is cross laced is what this means. You can do it as many times as you want, and it is just like when I tell you guys, when you're putting a new leader on a bobbin, go around 3 times, because you're spreading out the tension over the 3 times around. You're doing the same thing. You're spreading some of this tension between the hooks, so each hook you use will take a little more tension off your uptake. So if you're having trouble with your single snapping, you either need to draft more slowly so that the tension can build up a little bit more, or you can cross lace or loosen your tension on the uptake so that it isn't pulling quite as hard out of your hand, or you can speed your wheel up. All 3 of those things will help if you're not getting enough twist in your yarn and you're getting snapping. You prefer to let your twist go into your fiber supply. That's just the way you spin. I would draft like this. Really need that speed if you're doing it this way. Nothing wrong with it. Doesn't matter which way you do it. You will get more a more fuzzy yarn if you let the twist go into your fiber supply, and sometimes that's what you want, right? I am gonna go grab a dime so we can compare and see how fine this really is. All right, you can see that is pretty fine. I mean, here's a dime for scale. That is a very, very fine single. So a couple other things to keep in mind. One of my friends cracked me up because she was like, what are the things that people need to know when they're spinning lace weight yarn? One of the things is that it takes forever. And it does. If you're spinning like 4 ounces of lace weight, I mean, you've got to just think about how it's going to take you so long. It has so much more twist. The plying is going to take so long. But if what you enjoy is knitting with lace or weaving with lace weight yarn, it might really be worth it. So one of the things you can see too, if you want to see what is my finished yarn going to look like if you want a 2-ply, is you can just pull some out off your bobbin and let it ply back on itself. Oh my gosh. And you will see how fine of a yarn it's going to be if it's 2-plied. So for me, that's actually finer than I normally would spin, even for a lace weight. I have 2 more tips. One is, while you're plying singles this fine, you are likely to have more snapping during plying than normal. So if you are used to plying from a Lazy Kate that has a tensioning device of some sort, you may want to do that with no tension at all. In fact, I always ply with no tension and use my hands only to provide the tension, but if you are used to doing that, you may want none. That's one tip. And then my other tip is, if you are going to do very fine lace weight, while you're learning, you're probably going to have some snapping. A lot of us have snapped a single and had a hard time finding it. So I have some tips for this. These tips you can use no matter what width your single is. If you snap it and you lose the end, I have 2 different ways. I don't want to do that and create that for myself, but I have 2 different ways that I use. This is my #1 way. I carry this in my spinning bag. This is my spinning bag. You can see there's wool on this toothbrush. These are those ones that you can get like at a dollar store for $4 or $5 for $1. This is my #1 way. If you've snapped a single and you've lost the end, just start with your spinning toothbrush. Don't use your regular toothbrush for this. You're gonna get wool on it. And you just start gently stroking it up the bobbin. You can turn the bobbin if you get all the way from end to end and you haven't found it, or if like you know what hook you were on, you kind of know where it should be. Turn the bobbin gently. This one has, I don't think, ever failed me since I started using it. So if you're watching this, you're gonna see it. See that start to move? So if you're watching while you're doing it, you are gonna see one of those move and it's gonna reveal itself. See that? Then when I get closer to the end, it just starts to really move around. I have also seen people take a piece of Scotch tape and do the same thing you would if you were trying to pick up lint. See that? And it pulls it right up. It finds it. The only problem with my Scotch tape method is I find that it can raise a little bit of fuzz on your yarn, but if you're trying to find that end and it means a few spots of fuzziness, usually finding the end is more important. If you're gonna spin lace weight, and I know after watching this you're gonna wanna try, you definitely will snap your single and at some point it's gonna get buried. So these are tips that you are gonna be glad you saw. I hope you guys are having a great week out there in the real world. I'm pretending I don't live in the real world in this moment, so that's why I'm saying you're all out there in the real world. I hope this helps one of you achieve your lace weight spinning dreams, at least one, hopefully more than one. And I hope these tips help you as well, because these aren't just good for lace weight. And if you have questions, please put them below. I do put them in the Q&As that come up like every couple of months. And I just hope you have a really great week. I will see you guys Sunday for a live. Thanks, I love you, bye.